I naively believed it was merely an error and that it would end there. Though I was mistaken. What would later become the most perplexing and forbidden times of my life began that day. I can still feel the chills going down my spine just thinking about telling you this story. Reason being, this is more than a confession. It's a showdown with my own demons, desires, and humiliation. Good day, Alfred. Daddy of my mom. Confident, charming, and full of life. He was an unassuming type of guy who could hold an audience's attention just by being himself. His presence could fill any space, even though he was usually quite quiet around the house. We were never really close, but he was my mom's second spouse. Despite his politeness, he seemed somewhat removed. Right up until that moment. When the tide turned. Jennifer, my mom, was out and about with her pals as she usually is. Alfred and I were the heirs to the family home. The evening was peaceful. That is how I had hoped it would turn out. To change into something more comfortable, I went to my room. I had just slipped into my underwear and stood in front of the mirror, ready to change into a dress, when I made the subtle sound of the door creaking open. The door is open to you, Emily. From the doorway, Alfred spoke softly. His voice was soothing, yet it startled me all the same. His intense gaze met mine as I cocked my head to look. It seemed as if time stood still. I was at a loss for what to do. I was unclothed. Also, I remained still. As if he were deciding whether to enter or not, he hung his hand on the doorknob. I felt a surge of bewilderment and something else as his stare lasted for an uncomfortable amount of time. Mysterious occurrence. My chest tightened with anguish. Although it was only a matter of seconds, it felt like the world changed at that instant. He finally murmured, "I'm sorry," while looking away. His voice, however, was not wholly contrite. It had an air of uncertainty about it, as if he were unsure of how much he regretted it. Closed the door behind him. His aura persisted even as he retreated. "No worries," I whispered, my voice quivering ever so slightly. It wasn't all right with me, though. There was a change in me that I couldn't deny. When he departed, I found myself alone with my ideas. However, the subtle tension in the air and his lingering gaze stuck with me. I could not erase that memory from my head. I naively believed it was merely an error, an uncomfortable situation that would eventually pass. Though I was mistaken. Once again, it occurred within a few days. It went to new heights this time. It could have all been explained away as a badly timed interaction or an unpleasant gaffe up until that point. I also had that same impression. However, I quickly realized that it would continue beyond that point. It was only the beginning that day. From point on, I will detail everything that transpired. We were invited to a wedding the following day. The second marriage of one of my mom's best friends was taking place. In her customary upbeat and enthusiastic form, my mom was all dolled up and prepared for the occasion. Having a good time and being loyal to her friends were always important parts of Jennifer's personality, but she had never been one to truly commit to anything. Conversely, I wasn't too excited about going. Things were different before Alfred showed up at that wedding. We made it to the location in one piece. I caught myself staring at Alfred more often than was appropriate due to the hustle and bustle of the crowd surrounding us. Perhaps I had simply failed to notice his attractiveness and charisma until now. He appeared to exude self-assurance as the gentle illumination of the wedding lights bathed him. With an air of carefree charisma, he strutted around in his finely made suit. The thoughts persisted, though, and I fought to dispel them. While I reminded myself to don't be ridiculous, Emily, my gaze kept returning to him. The sound of a dance music began to play. In the midst of the dance floor, bobbing to the beat, were my mom and Alfred. There was Jennifer's signature carefree grin. However, she abruptly shifted her attention to me and beamed as she danced. She told Alfred to ask Emily to the dance. For a little while I should visit my buddies. Part of me snapped awake. I felt my pulse quicken. After a little pause, Alfred grinned and reached out to shake my hand. His expression was one of self-assurance and lack of concern. His voice was light as he urged Emily forward. "I'll require some instruction from you." On the dance floor, Jennifer had already embarrassed me. I couldn't resist giving in to his laid-back charm. "Sure," I said with a quiver in my voice as I tentatively extended my hand. My nerves were on edge as we made our way to the dance floor, all eyes on us. I felt my heart rate increase the second his palm touched my waist. Scent of his perfume, gentleness of his touch. So much of it was genuine. Something is going to happen in this story soon. Please subscribe to my channel and enable notifications if you find this interesting. Your backing is greatly appreciated. Please hit the like and comment buttons. Alfred kept staring at me the whole time we danced. Emily, your creativity is just astonishing, he exclaimed, his smile radiating warmth. His voice had an irresistible allure that touched me profoundly. It is truly a pleasure to dance with you. I averted my eyes from his, attempting to hide my inner turmoil. I tried to explain that I was only trying my hardest, but my weak voice let me down. The grin on Alfred's face softened. He told me not to underrate myself. His grip on my waist was becoming increasingly tight, and I could feel it. This is more than simply dancing. What we have to share is special. Can you not perceive it? It wasn't until then that I understood there was more to our bond than the dance. Though my thoughts and emotions were racing, my body was moving in sync with the music. My mother, the throng, the din, and everything else vanished. Only Alfred and the people steadying me remained. I was overwhelmed by the mix of perplexity and yearning within. Amidst my jumbled thoughts, Alfred's voice broke through the dance floor with its gentle but profound sound. His apology from the other day was his main point, he explained. I was going to warn you beforehand, but coming in like that? Considering your personal space, it was likely somewhat inconsiderate. I felt a rush of warmth and a reddening of the cheeks. Even though I wanted to relieve the stress, my gaze dipped downward. It's all right, I whispered hastily, my voice quivering slightly. The truth is, it's not a major issue. Such things are possible. Alfred took a little break from dancing, but he never took his gaze off of me. His voice was getting softer, but he persisted nevertheless. I want you to know that my purpose was never to make you feel uncomfortable. I only desired to have your undivided attention. I felt my pulse race. I tried to soothe him by saying that I wasn't uncomfortable. Concurrently, I was struggling to control the peculiar excitement that was building up within me. Actually, I don't mind. For a brief second, our distance grew wider. I felt his hand on my waist and his genuine stare as we continued to dance, and it touched me deeply. However, the fervor was short-lived. We ceased to dance as the music progressively faded out. With a soft smile, Alfred expressed his gratitude. You're an amazing dance partner, I must say. My pulse was still pounding, so I just nodded. Thank you as well, I whispered. After that, I hurried back to my table and took a seat. After staring at me for what seemed like an eternity, Alfred finally shifted to a different table. Whatever it was between us, it was evident at that instant from those lingering looks that it wasn't over. It had only just started, if anything. Jennifer came over to us, beaming, as she made her way back to the wedding hall. She praised our dancing and told us it was beautiful. Out there, you two were really stunning. I attempted to brush it off, but her compliment just made me feel worse. Saying that with a little smile on my face, I had a great time. With an almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips, Alfred only nodded courteously. Jennifer kept talking while enthusiastically clapping her fists. Well, would you believe it? A bachelorette party will be held after the wedding, and it will be attended only by the girls. Will you be the one to bring Emily home, Alfred? Alfred managed a gentle grin. Without a doubt, he responded in a nonchalant manner. In that instant it hit me. Jennifer was being completely unjust to Alfred. Even though she was supposed to be with him that night, she ended up abandoning him. I forced myself to ignore the slight unease that had formed in my chest. Jennifer appeared completely unconcerned. It was obvious that spending time with her pals was her first priority. After the ceremony was over, Alfred and I made our way to the vehicle side by side. There was no turning back now that Jennifer and her pals were on their way. After we hopped into the automobile, Alfred started the engine in a low-key manner. During the drive, there was an almost palpable lack of sound between us. I looked out the window and tried not to speak up in the relative silence. However, Alfred did finally speak up. Hello, Jennifer. He spoke while keeping his focus on the path ahead, saying that occasionally she has different priorities. The fact that she is so careless at times still surprises me. You would think your significant other would be there for you on nights like these, wouldn't you? I could hear a trace of disappointment under his thoughtful and serene tone. I felt very moved by what he said. It broke my heart to think that someone as powerful, charismatic, and composed as Alfred could be lonely. Even if my voice trembled a little, I composed myself and replied, "Yes, I guess it's important to give things a bit more thought when they're this complicated." Alfred gave a little nod. With his eyes fixed on the road, he acknowledged your point. However, it seems that every relationship is unique. An unseen bond was beginning to form between us at that very instant. The extent to which I could comprehend and empathize with his isolation was profound. Concurrently, I found it difficult to control my own feelings. I felt like I was getting closer to him after that little chat. A strong, subtle affinity is developing between us. Alfred let me in as soon as we got home by opening the door and waving. He bid me good night. He clearly wasn't prepared to depart quite yet, though, because of his hesitation. I could see Alfred standing by the doorway as I made my way to my room. I abruptly halted and turned to confront him, compelled by an unexplained impulse. "Hello, Alfred." My voice was hardly audible as I spoke. "Are you ready to enter? Perhaps we might spare some time to chat." Alfred graciously declined, but his desire to remain was clear from the look in his eyes. He appeared apprehensive following the events of the previous day. The reason I invited him in was to demonstrate that I had overcome it, that it had lost all significance. However, I ended up going back to my room and mentally repeating Alfred's comments and Jennifer's actions. His isolation was palpable to me. I was embarrassed by how much that touched me. I sat on the side of my bed and attempted to relax, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. For some reason, he kept popping into my head. The day he wandered into my room by accident keeps playing in my head. Why? As time passed, the house became noticeably quieter. I still didn't know what Alfred was up to, and Jennifer hadn't come back either. I was paralyzed with fear as the sound of my door slamming shut interrupted my mental struggle. Alfred was standing in the doorway when I glanced up. Despite his confused appearance, his eyes betrayed a determined spirit. Up I sprung in an instant. I couldn't help but sound surprised as I called out to Alfred, "Why are you in this place?" He remained motionless in the room after shutting the door behind him. He remained still, as if engaged in an internal debate. He started, "Emily," using a quiet yet emotionally charged voice. "I agree with you. She treats me unfairly, Jennifer. However, tonight, Jennifer's actions or lack thereof are of no concern to me." He advanced toward me, his eyes meeting mine. He finally confessed, his voice calm but somewhat hesitant, that he had felt something for you for some time. Particularly following the day I inadvertently entered your room. This keeps popping into my head. It felt like the room had lost all of its air pressure. Nothing came out of my mouth, not even thoughts. It was as if Alfred was hell-bent on getting everything off his chest, and he kept going. If I speak something, I might come to regret it. Perhaps I'm terribly mistaken. Emily, I just can't hold this in any longer. My mind wanders to you. Every single time. He waited for me to respond before continuing. The look of disbelief in my eyes told me he could tell. His voice becoming softer, he advanced a little further. "You are the one. You get me, Emily. Even if you're not aware of it, you can see me. Jennifer has never been competent in that area." There was a real fear that my heart may explode from the intense beating. It was a time of tremendous gravity. Words failed me as I attempted to reply. There was a lot of weight in the stillness between us, as if it contained all the feelings we were too embarrassed to express. Alfred looked down at the floor when he finally broke eye contact. With a heavy swallow, he let out a long sigh. In a low, nearly frail voice, he apologized to Emily. "It was inappropriate for me to say anything. I need to leave." He pivoted and began to make his way toward the entrance. His movements were methodical, yet it was evident that they were burdened. Observing his shoulder movements in response to his heavy breaths, I saw him go for the doorknob. Something changed inside of me at that moment. I discovered a bravery I hadn't known I possessed. My anxieties and perplexity vanished in the process. I couldn't bear to see him go. I whispered something to Alfred that echoed around the room. He paused. He slowly redirected his attention to me, and our eyes met. Within them, a conflict between remorse and yearning was raging. Neither of us shifted for a second. Afterwards, I let my dress slip from my shoulders and land on the floor while my hands quivered. The chilly air caressed my body as the room's dim lighting highlighted my bare shoulders. Alfred was staring at me with an intense and unfaltering stare. I couldn't help but stare at him, even though I knew he was observing me closely. I told Alfred, my voice quivering, but my resolve strong enough to overcome the fear, that I, too, had not forgotten. When you entered my room that day, my world turned upside down. Attempting to bury these emotions has been my goal ever since. To the contrary, I am unable to. I also have feelings for you. Perhaps I have for quite some time. Words came out of my mouth at a rate that made my heart feel like it may explode. For a few period, Alfred remained silent, his gaze fixated on mine as if attempting to absorb my recent words. I could feel the same irrefutable connection and attraction in their eyes that I had in mine. Tonight I uttered, my breath steady and deep. Embracing these emotions is something I no longer want to do tonight. To be honest, Alfred, I have no idea whether what I'm saying is correct or not. His hands brushed over my face as he moved closer. As if he were scared to ruin the moment, his touch was gentle and slow. When our gazes met, it was as if the distance between us had been a mirage. His lips brushed against mine as he lowered himself slowly. We had been suppressing our feelings and desires for a long time, but that first kiss broke them all. As time went on, Alfred's kisses and touch became increasingly passionate. The idea of reversing course or pausing never occurred to me. For the time being, I didn't care at all. With deliberate slowness, I retreated until my legs touched the bed's edge, and then I allowed myself to collapse onto it. As I observed, Alfred's fingers found their way to his shirt buttons, and he delicately undid each one. He seemed to want to hold on to this moment forever, as if every step was calculated. He looked to take over the room with his self-assured and authoritative demeanor as he removed his shirt. He continued to approach me, his eyes fixed on me the whole time. He laid his garments out neatly on the bedside table and leaned down, drawing more and nearer until the only thing separating us was the static electricity. There was nothing but want and passion in the air between us. Everything appeared to come to a halt. Only that one instant existed. Nobody else. We had a union when we gave ourselves up to each other, and he leaned over me to do it. Feelings ran high. Within me, I sensed a large, comforting presence. This was unlike anything I had experienced previously. Looking at Alfred, I could make out his strong physique and wide shoulders. In an effort to track Alfred's every action, I closed my eyes, lifted my palms up in the air, and pressed them firmly against the cushion. My muscles tensed up at that very second. "You are unique," Alfred told me as we locked eyes. It has always been obvious to me. It has become clearer to me now. He could hardly breathe. "Also you are," I told Alfred. On the inside I was toasty. It was as if I were in a dream. When Alfred got down on his knees next to me, I immediately put my head on his chest. I could feel his powerful chest against mine and hear his heartbeat as it pounded steadily. Experiencing the truth of this moment brought forth a mix of calm and intense emotional conflict within me. Gathering the nerve to speak, I silently traced patterns on his chest with my fingers. "This time, Alfred, you didn't just wander into my room," I remarked in a low but meaningful voice. By looking him in the eyes and speaking frankly, I was able to convey the internal conflict I was experiencing while simultaneously compelling him to face the truth. An unmistakable expression of profound contemplation was seen on Alfred's face as he cracked a small smile. "Emily," he shot down the idea. "Nothing here happened by chance, yet no matter how tough it is, I had to tell you how I really feel." With my fingers moving more slowly, I drew my attention back to his chest. Resuming my speech, I inhaled deeply. "Alfred," I whispered, "you are such a unique and stunningly handsome man. However, after this, what takes place? Where do we go from here?" "The woman I call Mom." "Depopulace." I was drawn nearer to Alfred as he tilted his head ever so slightly. Even though he was quite emotional, his voice was soothing as he ran his fingers over my hair. "Emily, I am unsure. Right now, I can tell you with absolute certainty that everything is happening for genuine. Love you. Assisting you physically. It is undeniable." His remarks exacerbated the storm within me, yet his candor calmed me down. With my eyes closed, I drew comfort from his embrace. At that very moment, as we faced the future with all its unknowns. All we could do was feel each other. I am aware that my story has moved you greatly if you have come this far. You won't want to miss a single word of what I have to say. In addition to leaving a comment on this story, make sure to follow the account and enable notifications. I am eagerly anticipating your feedback.